I'm smelling coffee, birds are singing just outside. Here comes your mercy, streaming in with the morning light. My heart's racing, waking up to your smile, saying, good morning. Saying, good morning.
All right, well, good morning. Welcome back to Breakfast with the Bible. Today is Tuesday. We're looking at Psalm 32. I will start. Blessed is he whose transgression is forgiven, whose sin is covered. Blessed is the man unto whom the Lord imputeth not iniquity, and in whose spirit there is no guile. When I kept silence, my bones waxed old through my roaring all the day long. For day and night thy hand was heavy upon me. My moisture is turned into the drought of summer. Selah. I acknowledged my sin unto thee, and mine iniquity have I not hid. I said, I will confess my transgressions unto the Lord, and thou forgavest the iniquity of my sin. Selah. For this shall every one that is godly pray unto thee in a time when thou mayest be found. Surely in the floods of great waters they shall not come nigh unto him. Thou art my hiding place. Thou shalt preserve me from trouble. Thou shalt compass me about with songs of deliverance. Selah. I will instruct thee and teach thee in the way which thou shalt go. I will guide thee with mine eye. Be ye not as the horse or as the mule, which have no understanding, whose mouth must be held in with bit and bridle, lest they come near unto thee. Many sorrows shall be to the wicked, but he that trusteth in the Lord, mercy shall compass him about. Be glad in the Lord, and rejoice, ye righteous, and shout for joy, all ye that are upright in heart. So this psalm was St. Augustine's favorite psalm. Augustine had it inscribed on the wall next to his bed before he died in order to meditate on it better. Some scholars believe that this psalm is the fulfillment of Psalm 51, 51:13, where it says, we've covered that a few times, actually. Then will I teach transgressors thy ways, and sinners shall be converted unto thee. The word in the superscription here is, a Psalm of David, Mashiel. This word is considered to be contemplation or instruction. Spurgeon says about verse 1, blessed is he whose transgression is forgiven and whose sin is covered. The word blessed is in the plural. Oh, the blessednesses, the double joys, the bundles of happiness, the mountains of delight. No man is more blessed, in my opinion, than the man whose transgression is forgiven. David understood, as Paul states in Romans 4:6-8, which I will go there now, that even as David also describeth the blessedness of the man unto whom God imputeth righteousness without works, saying, blessed are they whose iniquities are forgiven and whose sins are covered. Blessed is the man to whom the Lord will not impute sin. In the first two verses, David describes sin in three different ways. Transgression, which is crossing the line, defying authority, if you will. Sin, missing the mark, which we use a lot. And then iniquity, or is a crookedness or a distortion. So then he uses three words to describe what God does to put it away. Forgiven, lifting of a burden or debt, covered, sacrificial blood covering, and imputeth not, no longer counts against you. David is making sure that his definition is thorough. The blessed man, whose sins are forgiven, covered, and no longer imputed, no longer needs to be deceitful to cover one's ways. This is the end of verse 2. And in whose spirit is no guile or no deceit. Again, Spurgeon The lesson from the whole is this: be honest, sinner. May God make you honest. Do not deceive yourself. Make a clean breast of it before God. Have an honest religion, or have none at all. Have a religion of the heart, or else have none. Put aside the mere vestment and garment of piety, and let your soul be right within. Be honest. Spurgeon says, verses 3-4. When I kept silent, my bones waxed old through my roaring all the day long. For day and night thy hand was heavy upon me. My moisture is turned into the drought of summer, Selah. Ends with Selah because we believe that there's a time for deep contemplation, deep pause to reflect. David is recalling the agony of carrying the burden of unconfessed sin. When I kept silence, and then it was I refused to confess. David was kind of stubborn about it, if you will. When I kept silence, when I resisted, when I decided to keep my mouth shut, my bones waxed old through my roaring all the day long. David felt a physical effect from not confessing his sin to God. For day and night thy hand was heavy upon me. Spurgeon again said, God's hand is very helpful when it uplifts, but it is awful when it presses down. Better a world on the shoulder like Atlas than God's hand on the heart like David. The fact that David is so overwhelmed and burdened by his unconfessed sin is actually a blessing. One who feels no such burden in such a state has far greater concerns for time and eternity. So if you're not weighted down by unconfessed sin, then there's a bigger issue here. We recall our discussion regarding chastisement in Hebrews. God will not allow David to be comfortable in continual unconfessed sin. And we look forward to the chastisement of the Lord because it is assuring us that we are in fact his children. Verse 5, I acknowledge my sin unto thee, and mine iniquity have I not hid. I said, I will confess my transgressions unto the Lord, and thou forgavest the iniquity of my sin. Confession isn't simply letting God know, as if he didn't already, what your sin was. It is absolute agreement that you have sinned. This is, I acknowledged, I confessed. Lord, I agree with you. My ways have contradicted your ways. My choices have contradicted your standards. 1 John 1:9, if we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. If we agree with him that we have sinned, if we recognize, Lord, this went against your law, this went against your standard, and we confess that it's a problem, this is when he forgives our sin and cleanses us from all unrighteousness. Once again, Spurgeon. But there are too many who make confession, having no broken hearts, no streaming eyes, no flowing tears, no humbled spirits. Know ye this, that 10,000 confessions, if they are made by hardened hearts, if they do not spring from really contrite spirits, they shall be only additions to your guilt, as they are mockeries before the Most High. Excuse me. Luke chapter 5, verse 8 says this. If I can get there. When Simon Peter saw it, he fell down at Jesus' knees, saying, Depart from me, for I am a sinful man, O Lord. This was Peter's recognition. This was Peter's agreement. Depart from me, O Lord, I am a sinful man. This was a broken spirit. This was a contrite heart. This was a man who understood, I'm not even worthy to be in your presence because of the things that I've done. Now, Peter doesn't give us a list of things that he's done, but he's acknowledging that he is a sinful man. Anybody who comes face to face with Jesus Christ should be able to do that. Excuse me again. I got something in my throat this morning. Verse 6. For this shall everyone that is godly pray unto thee in a time when thou mayest be found. Surely in the floods of great waters they shall not come nigh unto him. David knew this was a good, if not the best time to pray to the Lord for the forgiveness of sin. When's the best time to come to the Lord in prayer? For confession of sin and request for forgiveness. That is the best prayer that you could ask, because really it builds a wall between you and God. It breaks up the fellowship when you have unconfessed sin. Because as David shows us, there's this weight, there's this burden. Your body is affected by it. We should be able to relate to that. This idea of you're just trying to hide it, trying to keep it unconfessed. And the problem is you have to continue to hide it, and you have to continue to make it heavier because you're adding more and more guile to it, more deceit to it to keep it hidden. But then when you acknowledge your sin, when you come to God and say, this is my sin, this is what I've done, when your sin is confessed, there is in fact this freeing moment where you realize, I don't have to protect it anymore. It is now open. It is now, you can be vulnerable. You can be, it's a weight that is lifted away. Verse 7, thou art my hiding place. Thou shalt preserve me from trouble. Thou shalt compass me about with songs of deliverance. The confession of sin and guilt before a holy God restores the feeling of security and fellowship. Thou art my hiding place. Thou shalt preserve me from trouble. David goes back and says, I've acknowledged my sin. I've confessed my sin before God. He has covered my sin. I am forgiven. And then this is the best time to pray to the Lord. And now I feel again, you're my hiding place. You preserve me. Spurgeon, wrote, observe that the same man who in the 4th verse was oppressed by the presence of God, here finds a shelter in him. See what honest confession and full forgiveness will do. This is such a great example. David is overwhelmed by unconfessed sin. He tells us what he's done in keeping it. I've kept silence, and my bones have waxed old through my roaring all the day long. It's becoming too much for me. So I acknowledged my sin unto thee, and you forgave my sin. Lord, thou art my hiding place. Thou shalt compass me about with songs of deliverance. This deliverance, this forgiveness of sin, you're surrounded by songs of it. It's all of a sudden there's this praise, this free spirit kind of thing where this sin is forgiven, and now you can celebrate. Verse 8, I will instruct thee and teach thee in the way which thou shalt go. I will guide thee with mine eye. God is speaking through David at this moment. The Lord promises us that he will be our teacher. We must serve the Lord in such a way that just a glance from his eyes should be enough to understand what he desires of us. You have a look. You're a parent. You have a look that you give your children. You don't have to say a word. You just kind of look at them a specific way, and they grasp what you're trying to tell them. This is what God is referring to. There's this, somebody's being disobedient. Somebody isn't going to do something, or whatever the case may be, and you have a specific look, and the kid goes, okay. My kids tell me what my look is. They say, oh, you do this when you're, So we all have one, even if we don't know it. This is what the Lord's talking about. I will guide thee with mine eye. You will look at me, and you will understand what I'm trying to tell you. There's a closeness, there's a fellowship in there. There's a intimacy with that kind of conversation. Verse 9. Be ye not as the horse or as the mule, which have no understanding, whose mouth must be held with bit and bridle, lest they come near unto thee. Be teachable. A horse or a mule are not easily guided. Don't be like them. Remember the phrase, stubborn as a mule. So this is what David is saying. Don't be like a horse or a mule who has trouble being told where to go. Verse 10, many sorrows shall be to the wicked, but he that trusteth in the Lord, mercy shall compass him about. The one great sorrow that we can draw from this is the unforgiven sin of the wicked. David experienced the weight of unconfessed sin, unforgiven sin. The wicked do not feel this. That is a sorrow in itself. And one day, that one great sorrow will lead to an eternity of sorrow. Many sorrows shall be to the wicked, but he that trusteth in the Lord, mercy shall compass him about. David knew what it felt like. If you don't believe you're a sinner, you don't believe you need forgiveness, there's no weight there. There's no burden there. And that's a great sorrow. And verse 11, be glad in the Lord and rejoice, ye righteous, and shout for joy, all ye that are upright in heart. This is a most appropriate close to such a psalm. David recognizes that unconfessed sin is a burden extremely upon his body, upon his mind. And it becomes too much, and he acknowledges it before God. He says, Lord, I have acknowledged my sin before thee, and I have confessed it, and you have forgiven me. Then David explains how that restores a relationship. Then how God can teach him, God can operate through him, because he's unforgiven, and because he's forgiven, and he's made whole again. God can use that. David has learned from it. And then, what better reason to be glad and rejoice? Shout for joy, all ye upright in heart, because our sins are forgiven. Now, this was different than what we have now with Christ dying for our sins and giving us an ultimate forgiveness. If you've accepted Christ, if you've put your trust in Jesus Christ, you are forgiven. And that is a great reason to be glad and rejoice. That is probably the best reason. Because we didn't deserve it. We didn't do anything to earn it. We will never pay it back. God simply wanted our relationship with him to be restored. And so he made arrangements for that to be possible. He sent Jesus Christ, who lived a life of perfect, sinless holiness, and was crucified on your behalf, on my behalf, so that the relationship that God had intended with his creation can be restored, and we can join him in his presence for eternity. If you have not put your trust in Jesus Christ for the forgiveness of sins, for the remission of sins, I urge you to do so, because many sorrows shall be to the wicked. That is the one who hasn't put their trust in Jesus Christ. Because he that trusteth in the Lord, mercy shall compass him about. That mercy that David's talking about, is the forgiveness we don't deserve, is the eternity in heaven with God that we don't deserve. There are many sorrows that even believers have, but none as great as the sorrow of not knowing that you're a sinner, or not believing you're a sinner, and then not doing anything about it. So thank you for watching. Tomorrow is Wednesday. We will cover Psalm 33. I'm excited for that one. It's a pretty large psalm, so I don't know how much we're going to get through. But I pray this blessed you, Pray that it challenged you, maybe reminded you of what God has done for you. And then we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you, and God bless.